All right, everybody. Welcome to LaughED podcast. My name is John Spike, filling in this week for Zombie Casey Kasem, the undead host of America's Top 40 and producer of his own podcast titled Keep Your Feet on the Ground and Keep Reaching for Human Flesh. With me tonight is Michael Matera of Explore Like a Pirate fame. Michael, it is so great to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
John, this is awesome to be on your podcast here. I'm super excited, a little nervous here, but we'll see where it all takes us. As you said, I'm author of Explore Like a Pirate. I am a sixth grade world history teacher. I absolutely love teaching, and when I can, I try to get out there and present and do different PD sessions. Hopefully, in this school near you, listener.
And I've got to say, we had an interesting relationship early on. When we were first aware of each other's existence, there was a time where you thought I didn't exist, and I only existed in like the internet ether. Is that correct?
That's true. So, John, you and I have a similar hobby, a big love of playing board games, card games, getting people together. And so, everybody that knows you, we're both living in the same state. Everybody that knew you at ed camps were like, "Oh, Michael, you got to meet John. John's a great guy. He's funny. Blah blah. He loves games. You guys would so hit it off." And everybody's like, "Well, he always comes to all the ed camps." So, like, then I would go to this ed camp, that, and like big ones like Madison, like it's like the capital, he's got to make it there. And like then like you didn't try, and it was like six, I want to say it was six ed camps we missed each other. One of which I went to like your hometown's ed camp, and you chose to like not go to that one and go to the one that was like across the state.
So I was kind of blackmailed into that. I was in a master's program, and they decided to throw an ed camp the same day as, you're right, at the time I was living in Green Bay. And so we probably at some point, like our cars probably passed on the highway. And then just like add insult to injury, the two ed camps like did a Google Hangout with each other to share ideas.
Yeah, and
And
then
that
we
just
just
reinforced your theory.
that you're like some sort of automaton. It's true.
Designed never to meet. So yeah, we're kind of like star-crossed education lovers in a way.
A little bit, a little bit,
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit.
Not my best analogy. It sounded better in my head.
That's true. That's true. We'll see if you can touch that up in post. I don't know.
I'm gonna leave it. We like this podcast to be raw and truthful, and so we're gonna leave in every little awkward comment.
All right, let's do it.
Good deal. All right, so Michael, it's time for our first segment.
Tales of Classroom Comedy.
All right, our wonderful soundbite there that will get cleaned up in post production, Michael. So we've got Tales of Classroom Comedy, where our guest gets to tell two hilarious tales from your time as a teacher. Michael, why don't you take it away with your first tale?
So my first story I kind of want to tell is when I first uh, took over the current job that I have. I've been teaching sixth grade world history now for 11 years. Before that, I taught fifth grade kind of everything. And the transition to middle school, I like that's the job I wanted. Like I'm in the perfect job for me. Uh, but moving from having the kids all day where and they were the same kids, so you could kind of borrow time here and like like we'll catch up in math later and like just extend whatever project you're working on for English class or whatever to this like middle school schedule of like strict regimented, like the class was 45 minutes, no borrowing time, kick those kids out, new kids come in. uh let's just say it didn't go so well at the start.
That like formula, that devil's deal you were making to pull that off just didn't translate.
Yeah, no, it didn't work well for me. So I remember like right away I planned way too big of things because I was used to sort of that nebulous time. So made ginormous things. And then I was like, all right, like I would literally like on the weekends make lesson plans, look at them, and then try to chop them in like thirds because I was like, this won't work. then what happened, and here's sort of more the sort of funny tale, I guess, is um, then there was like a period of time where my lessons were way too short. And so I had to like then go through like this series of making things like little fillers that I could do like when my lesson came up, 10 minutes short or like 5 minutes short, which consistently happened. Um, so I would try to invent these little like 5 minute fillers, 10-minute fillers for my class. And like some of them were just terrible. Like I tried um, Pictionary, where one time they had to draw it on their hands.
What?
Well, like it was a middle schooler, and I thought like this will be funny. Um, then like I did this one where like kids could try to do old school punishments for fun. So we I wanted to see if anybody could like keep their arms out to their sides, like the old like Catholic school, like come up to the front of the room, like put your arms out. Kids actually kind of oddly liked that one. They would like say, "Could we try it? Could we try it again? Could we
It
try? I
seems
can do
like
it. I can do better."
something you'd
But
see
it's
on
okay.
Survivor or something, like they're
Yeah,
doing an immunity challenge and they're doing it in your class, but it's entirely unconnected to anything else.
yeah. So I did what like one time I did wheelbarrow races in my classroom. Just because I had 5 minutes left, and it's like, what do you do? And ultimately, I'll say that like oddly enough, some of that ended up sort of shaping my view of like building relationships with students. Not to
Mhm.
get too serious here on LaughED, but like I started to see like a balance of like giving that 5 minutes actually might have been some of the best things I did because like it really built a relationship with the kids. It made it a little fun, a little exciting, and we all kind of got to see each other in a different light.
Yeah, I keep going back to this Pictionary on the hands just because it sounds like something they would have done in the first schoolhouse. Like they didn't have any other supplies, so they had to maybe like carve Pictionary with a Bowie knife or something in the first kid's hand to play it. But I think there is some definite truth to that. Like you found out more about your students in these like silly,
Yeah,
ridiculous games than you might have like having them connect with the content. Not that that's not important, but yeah, I could see it.
yeah, in like 5 minutes. I don't know. In the end, maybe it's because I teach sixth grade, but I mean, maybe an AP teacher would totally disagree. But like at sixth grade, like making them feel comfortable and kind of being silly with them. I think when you had to have that serious time, it was just easier and better, and we're more connected.
Yeah, and it I totally agree, but I am thinking of like a kid going home to his parent or guardian and saying like, "Hey, what'd you do to get ready for the AP test?" It's like, "Well, we carved into our own hands some
Yeah,
of the terms."
yeah. I was
Uh,
working on a cheat sheet on my hand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My
Mr.
teacher
Matera taught
actively
me.
encouraged it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. The wheelbarrow
Uh,
race was pretty fun. That was a good one.
any dislocated shoulders or
No, uh, we did. Well, I did have one contest where you put, like you take a piece of tape and you kind of like wrap it around so it's double sided,
okay?
and then the point was who could jump the highest and slap the tape to the wall, but it only counts if the tape sticks. And so that they didn't like slam into the wall, I did it above the door so like their body could kind of swing out the door.
Sure.
Well, what I didn't factor in the first time I did it is some people might be passing by the door. And so like a kid just like mega goes for it, jumps sky high, slaps the wall, his legs like dangle out the door and totally like clobber a kid. Thankfully, like it was another sixth grade student getting like a drink of water from another class, and they kind of like understand the zaniness in my room and just kind of laughed at it. But if it had been a fifth grader or God forbid an administrator, this would not be on LaughEd because I would be unemployed.
I thought I was worried this was going like he punted a kindergartner, like just like kind of just punted him, and like it was actually more impressive how far that went than how high he slapped the tape on. So I'm thankful as well.
There you go. There you go. See, it all worked out.
All right. Well, you have set the bar high, my friend, for your second tale of classroom comedy. What do you got for us?
The second one is it takes place at lunch. So we at our school we get the pleasure, I should say, of eating with our students. It is a fascinating moment where you get to kind of know your students a little different and hear their sort of zany, wild stories and what they do on the weekend and all that other stuff. Uh, and our kids, well, I don't want to tee it up that way. So we,
Good
I
save.
get my lunch, and this is like in the middle of winter, and I approach the lunch table and I hear there's about like four kids already at the lunch table talking, four sixth graders, and as I approach, I make out some of what they're saying, and I'm pretty certain the word G string was mentioned, and I was like, oh God, what am I like? I really just want to eat my lunch. I don't want to deal with like, writing these like warnings we have to write. And sure enough, I get up there and they're like, yeah, like my G string broke and like drives me nuts. And like this other like girls talking about her G string, and it was like, oh my, like what is happening? And then like I am literally seconds away from having to like bust in and yell at these kids. And then this third outside kid kind of says like, yeah, that's why I stopped playing cello, because like in the winter, those things just snap all the time. And I was like, oh, thank God you're a bunch of music like kids, and like not where my mind went.
That is a serious commentary on you, I think, and where your maturity is to go that G string instead of obviously the cello that sixth graders would be talking about.
it was it was not my best moment, but it also like just reminded me of just middle school in general. Like
Ugh.
and the hilarity that can be had in middle school. Like kids will say the darndest things. Sometimes they are thinking about those things. So, whew.
Yeah. That one reminds me of a quick story. I was on my first year teaching. I was on bus duty with a biology teacher, and we'd share a little bit of inspiration for the show. We'd share funny things that happened during the day. And so one day he tells me the story. This student was filling out a test, and instead of writing one organism consumes the other, the student wrote the other organism consummated the other. Which, Michael, I don't know if your biology is
Up
up
to
to
snuff.
snuff, but those are two very different things. But here's the kicker. So this
That's not the
transpired.
kicker.
That you'd think that would be the kicker, but here's what absolutely was just the wildest thing. A week later, I teach Romeo and Juliet, and I had to explain to these ninth grade boys and girls that at the end of one of the acts, one thing that Romeo and Juliet do is they consummate their marriage, and I had to discreetly explain what that meant to them. And so, sure enough, like I ask a question on like a Romeo and Juliet quiz, what happens at the end of this scene, which was a terrible question to ask. I don't know why I asked it. But
Terrible.
a student tried to write, Romeo consummates Juliet, but instead he wrote Romeo consumes Juliet
Ooh,
and had done the opposite of that other student. And so like I ran out and I never ran out to bus duty. I ran out to bus duty and I said, you will never believe what just happened. We had the reverse consume consummate issue in my class. And to this
and
day, I can't explain it.
and now like a generation of students will forever confuse those two.
Yes. And it'll be just a very awkward, wedding night for them. Anywho, on that note, we're going to shift into a word from our sponsor. And today's podcast, Michael, is sponsored by Tamagotchis, the digital keychain pet. Teachers, do you miss the days when your students were only distracted by a pixelated dog surrounded by its own feces instead of a smartphone full of social media apps? Well, we've got some great news for you. Tamagotchis are back. Teach your students responsibility, time management, and how difficult it is to replace those tiny little watch batteries all at once. Get your classroom set of Tamagotchis today. All right, and with that, we're back with our next segment, which of course is.
Back in my day.
All right, yes, that's right. It is time for Back in My Day, where our guest tells stories from when they were a student. Michael, I am excited to hear your first story from your time as a student. What do you got for us?
So should I go in like chronological order? Like
There are no rules here, Michael. It's all
whoa,
up to you.
whoa. All right. So I'm gonna start with being a history teacher. I'm gonna do chronological.
Fair.
Uh, my first and only detention.
Oh.
Oh, so I went to a Catholic school, and Sister Angeline every day we got in my case about wearing a hat to recess. Growing up in Wisconsin, that's a needed accessory. Um, I was in first grade, and I don't know, like you're in first grade, you're like constantly warm. You don't need to like ever wear anything. So I was like proud that I was wearing a jacket. Um, and eventually, Sister Angeline decided to give me a detention. And what I like don't know if I'll be able to describe here is I thought like I thought I did something really like badass here, I guess. And so I go to the detention room, and in there's like a bunch of eighth graders and like kids that were like smoking and stuff. And I roll up, but like in my head, I think I've done something big and badass. So I kind of like roll up and I sit down, and like some of the other kids chuckle, and I just like hold my face like I'm just like, I don't know what you're laughing, like. And one of the eighth graders kind of like did one of those like, "What are you in for?" kind of comments. And I said, "I didn't wear a hat to recess," and they all just busted out laughing, as did the detention like monitor, and pretty much we all spent the rest of the detention making fun of that moment. Um, it might be why I never got another detention again, because I was like, I never want to have that horrible experience happen again.
Were the other kids in detention, like, trading cigarettes as currency and like had
Yeah, I
multiple
mean,
tattoos? That's how I'm picturing this scenario.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
This is like total prison moment, and then my little kindergarten self, like, doo-doo-doo, but like not realizing that these guys are all tatted up.
You want to go in there and be like, yeah, I've got a 3 to 5 stretch for some,
Yeah, totally.
not
I was
wearing
I was
appropriate
I was
headwear.
thinking that was gonna take the day there, but it didn't. And like I said, that might be one of the more uncomfortable like 1 hours of my life.
That was called Sister Angeline's Scared Straight program right
Pretty
there.
much, pretty much. The
Yeah.
principal at the time was we used to call her Mad Max with the axe. So
Was the principal female?
yeah,
Okay. Mad Maxine or just
yep,
okay.
Maxine.
I just had an inkling, had a gut feeling that's what we were going for.
Yeah,
It's always good when you can find like a moniker that rhymes and is intimidating. So she checks a lot of boxes for that intimidating figure. Kind of picturing like a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like Nurse Ratched kind of thing here, for sure.
spot on, spot on.
So, Michael, do you have a second back in my day story for us?
Yeah, the second one I think will also reveal a little bit about myself because I still do some of this kind of shenanigans. This one comes from my days in college. I so a good friend of mine and I were in the same like political science class, and we are both like political science junkies. And this was like a 100 or 200 level class. And so, not to say that we knew everything, like we didn't. I mean, we're whatever, we're kids, so we think we know everything. Um, but like truthfully, we did know a lot. And like, so your brain didn't have to be completely active on like the given topic of the day. So we would try to challenge ourselves. We went to a small liberal arts college. I went to Xavier University. So we're talking about like 30 kids in a room or whatever. And so high participation rate, right? Like this isn't, we're not like at a, college lecture hall kind of system where you might not get as much interaction with the students. And so we would challenge each other. We would walk to class together, and as we're walking across the like college campus, we would give each other a couple words we would have to sort of work into class today, without letting anybody know that we're doing this. So the two of us had unbelievable participation because that was like how you had to play the game. So you had to be like raising your hand, answering questions from the teacher, and then like work in these weird words. We tried to not make it anything super inappropriate, but they were way left field. Like they didn't really fit a poli sci class at all. Um, yeah, so that had a lot of shenanigans daily.
I've played a variation of that, and the variation I played is some friends and I we go to a public place, and we'd try to get a stranger to say the word we wanted to say. So it's kind of like stranger password. And so you'd
Nice.
try to enact a conversation, but you'd be like trying to elicit the word out of them in a creative way. And I just know how that went. So I can only imagine like having this narrow lens of poli sci and like trying to work Zanzibar
Yep.
into like what you're talking about,
Yep.
or
You
poodle skirt or something like that, or
100%. That might have been one of them.
yeah, you're like, oh, I remember the poodle skirt class. It was really hard to tie that back to Reaganomics at the
Yeah.
time.
But we kept stats on it. It was pretty fun. It was a thing. It was definitely a thing. And like I said, I still do some of that shenanigans now. I was retelling this story about a year ago, and to some of my colleagues, and they were all like, "We need to do this at our next staff meeting." So at the next staff meeting, we all assigned each other one word, and we wanted to see who was ballsy enough to like, raise their hand and comment on something that was like being addressed and infuse the word you had. My word was haberdasher. Not not easy.
Is that the hat maker
That is a
or
hat maker,
yeah,
for those of you
okay.
that don't know. And I worked it in. I worked it in. I don't remember how I worked it in, but I achieved it. Out of the 6 teachers that were playing that day, I think only 3 actually played, I guess.
Was there kind of a ruckus when somebody would land their assigned word? Was there like no audible reaction, or did people kind of keep it pretty tightened
No,
up
because like
until
the
after?
whole point of the game, you gotta picture this. The whole point is that the rest of the other people cannot know the game's happening. So like you say that, you just work it in there, and then like, your eyes dart around to the people that are playing, and they kind of like give you a smile, but like the rest of the room cannot know. So there can't be like, oh gosh, and they can't, highlight that. They can't be like, you said haberdasher, like, are you stupid? Like they can't like bring you down. Like you just got to see if it can float out there and if it all works.
Do you think like the admin team got back like and they kind of reflected on how the staff meeting went, and they kind of went, "Did you catch that Michael dropped haberdasher in there and it kind of worked?" Do you think they had that moment where they're like,
I, I
I
don't
don't know
think
where
so.
Michael was going with it, but
I don't think so, but I would like to think so. That'd be fun. I have played like a version of this with some friends where a friend of mine, like, well, there was like 6 of us all together that night. The rest of the group did not know we were playing this, but myself and one other player would pick a letter, and we needed to try to work in as many words that started with that letter into conversation again without it being like noticed. Yet you're still trying to get as many, like I think we used R. R was our word or our letter. And like it got like ridiculous. Like towards the end, you're just tossing up conversations like, oh, like, do you guys know how Rasputin died? Let me tell you the story of Rasputin. Just because like you're out of like regular R words to use.
The crueler version of that game, which I've heard people do, is they ban a letter for you to be able to use, either that starts with a word or is in the word, which is the
In
meanest
the word,
one.
ouch.
Yeah, so you're sitting there trying to navigate around all these things that you want to say. It's just really cruel. It's really hard to mask that around other people, though. Like, it's very clear you're struggling just to communicate, and people might think you're having a mild stroke instead of actually trying to be a human. Wow, that is fantastic. I love the staff meeting infusion, and I'm just gonna throw this out here, Michael. A couple conferences coming up that you and I will be at. We might want to give this fire this
Give
one
this a
back
go.
up. Yeah.
I could flip the switch on that one.
So something to muse over. But we are getting to the end of our show, and now we've got time for one last round of my favorite part of LaughED, which of course is
The Teacher Improv Theater.
that's right, Michael. It's time for the Teacher Improv Theater. So for our listeners out there, how this works is Michael's going to pick a subject that he is comfortable teaching. I am going to pull a couple of cards out of the deck of classroom supplies, and Michael's going to choose one of those supplies to use in his lesson. The supplies, however, are quite ridiculous. I'm just going to give you that forewarning. I'm also going to pull a couple of target student populations, and these aren't your everyday students. They've got a little bit of a quirk to them, you could say. And Michael's going to kind of pitch what he'll do, overview of that lesson. And then about halfway through, I'll stop him and I'll throw him a little teaching curveball, which I think we can all relate to. Michael, are you ready to play Teacher Improv Theater?
Is anyone really ready for this?
No, no. The answer is no. That is an objective
All right.
answer to
Then
that.
I'm gonna say no, but you can proceed.
Okay, so Michael, I'm going to let you choose your subject right now. You can keep it as broad or as narrow as you want. What do you feel comfortable teaching today?
I am gonna go with. Oh man, I'll go with English class.
Oh, you're just going overall English.
Is
I'm
that
going to
what we
allow it.
call it? Is that what we call it?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're going with the act of reading
Language
and writing,
language arts.
the art of language. Sounds
Yes.
good. So Michael's going to teach something from language arts. Michael, your first option for a classroom supply is an etch a sketch and a shake weight. So you get those two together if you'd like.
Okay.
You could also have spinning the wheel here. Okay, we've got your second option is a game of chess and a chessboard, but all the pawns have been replaced with Cheetos puffs. Okay,
Okay.
so you can have the etch a sketch and shake weight or that chessboard. Okay,
I think I'm gonna.
um, do
Do I
you
have
want
to
to
lock in
choose
now?
one right now, or do you want to hear your student populations before you choose?
No, I think I would prefer to blindly choose without knowing what's around the corner.
Okay, what do you
So
want?
I'm choosing chessboard with all the pieces except the pawns, right?
No, all the pawns are Cheetos puffs.
Right, but I'm saying so I have the queen, king, rook,
Yes,
just Cheeto puffs for both sides.
that'd be
How,
correct.
all right.
Yeah. I can't tell you if the puffs have been like colored differently to distinguish them or if they're just covered in that orange Cheeto dust. That you can decide yourself.
One side be like flaming hot so we can distinguish between the two.
That sounds fair. I will allow it.
All right, so like there can clearly be two distinctive teams.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Okay.
All right. So, one target student population that you can try to reach, Michael, is a night class of all adults who recently came to the country and speak little of the native language. Or a classroom full of students who become very irritable if there is no freestyle rap every 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh god.
Who would you like, Michael?
Is there a third component to this?
You'll eventually get a curveball halfway through your pitch.
Oh god. All right. So the choices were adult population who just sort of got off the boat and doesn't speak English,
That's correct. Yep.
and then the other one is
Regular students.
regular students. Do I have an age bracket there?
I'll let you choose the age bracket, but they need to hear freestyle rap every 10 to 15 minutes or they get very irritable.
They
So
need to hear it.
yeah.
They don't need to create it. They don't need to be dropping the beats.
It says if there is no freestyle rap, they get irritable. So I will open that up to you for interpretation.
Wow. Wow. Ugh.
I think this is a pretty good draw. I don't know.
I'm gonna choose. Ah, I'm gonna choose freestyle rap.
Okay. Okay. So Michael is going to pitch his English language arts lesson. It is going to, he is going to have to use the chessboard with pawns or Cheetos puffs and a classroom full of students who become very irritable. If there's no freestyle rap every 10 to 15 minutes, Michael, why don't you start telling us a little bit about your lesson today?
All right, so simple lesson here on creative writing.
Sure.
It's a catch-all, right? It's what we're gonna start with creative writing unit. We're just opening the unit, and I thought, why not fuse it with a traditional classic game of chess? What the students are going to have to do is they're going to have to write verses of some rap
Sure.
that's going to involve their side's chess board. I'm going to divide the class in two. So half
Okay.
the class is going to be like the flaming hot Cheeto side. Half is going to be the regular orange dust, not the reddish dust
Okay.
team. And then we're going to change the rules of chess a wee bit, though.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be the like judge to this, and they're gonna write a verse and perform that verse so that we can get plenty of freestyle rap in there. And uh, if it meets all the qualifications of creative writing and infusing of like good language, they would get to move a piece. But the
Oh.
game here is you can win traditionally with checkmate, or if you take a pawn, you get to eat it. And if they ever run out of pawns, they lose.
Oh.
So
So you
like
got
the
to
pawns,
protect your pawns.
you got to protect the pawns at all costs. And I didn't mention this, but we're doing this in we'll say like a seventh grade class, because seventh grade would just be horrible to do this. So let's just
Just
amp it
up
up.
the ante. All
So
right.
we got creative writing, but I need this curveball now.
Yeah, no, I just drew it for you, and it's one of my favorite curveballs, Michael.
Oh god.
The class pet, a large guinea pig named Fifi, got loose and jumped into a box fan. There is fur, blood, and entrails everywhere. How do you work this into the lesson? You've just seen Fifi go up in a cloud of fur, blood, and entrails. How does this circle back? How do you bring the class back after seeing Fifi get maimed?
So like disclaimer, I think I would have to allow anyone to be excused if they had to be. So anyone could leave. But those of them that choose to fight on, I'm going to ask them to harness the carnage for their poetic freestyle beats. Use the pain for their creative writing / beats / win the game. However, due to loss of appetite, they might not have to eat the Cheetos now.
Hashtag do it for Fifi.
Yeah, do it for Fifi, right? Like Fifi would have wanted it this way.
Yep. You know how Fifi loved
Yeah.
her Cheetos Puffs. Do it for Fifi.
I would try really hard if I was in a seventh grade class, because high sarcasm level there. I would try really hard not to make a joke that Fifi hated their poetry so much that he took his life, or she took his life.
Yeah, it's unclear like what gender Fifi was, but
So
yes. Fantastic.
I would try really hard not to bring that up.
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. I've been waiting for that card to be picked, and that truly, I know, Michael, you have a theory out there that I intentionally pick these cards, but that was truly random. I will say,
Truly random.
truly random as me having just a Google slide deck of the cards and spinning my cursor can be.
That's
Yeah,
pretty random. That's pretty
yeah,
random.
yeah,
I'll give you that.
absolutely.
That's legit.
So, Michael, that was a phenomenal game of teacher improv theater. And I just want to get a plug in right now. If anybody's interested in creating a card for teacher improv theater, you can go to laughedpodcast.com. There's a form under the teacher improv theater, and you can submit your idea. I'd love to have them. I don't want it just being me having all the fun writing these cards. So if you want to submit to the game, you can do that. You can get your own deck of the teacher improv theater to play with your fellow teaching friends. It could kind of be like the game you play with your fellow colleagues, Michael, where you try to insert a word into staff meetings.
That's a good game. You guys really should try it. I tell you, I got a staff meeting, or if you have like your department meeting, smaller crew, try to go with the letter one, like with just you and one of the colleagues. Be fun. Telling you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Michael, you have been just an unparalleled Laugh Ed podcast guest. How can people connect with you if they would like?
So probably like the best outlet that would connect with sort of everything would be mrmatera.com. There, like they can find my podcast, my YouTube channel, my Twitter, my book. Uh, yeah, just about everything.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on Laugh Ed Podcast. And all those listeners out there, all 12 of you, thank you so much. Keep on laughing. And you can share your stories on laughedpodcast.com. All right. Laugh on, everybody.